We're starting over on the eastern border of Noble Square. The boundaries for Noble Square are the Kennedy Expressway to the east and Chicago Avenue to the south, Division Street to the north, and Ashland Avenue to the west. So we're just basically hugging the western edge of the Kennedy Expressway on Elizabeth Street here. Now to our right, we're coming up on the biggest park in Noble Square. It might be the only park. I'm not certain, but it really sort of anchors the neighborhood. This is Eckhart Park. It's got a couple ball fields, a gym, and a basketball court inside. It's a pretty decent facility. Taking a left onto one of the alleys here now. Noticed that Noble Square has every neighborhood in Chicago has a fairly extensive alley system, at least in my experiences. But Noble Square seems to have an even more extensive alley system than most neighborhoods. These alleys can almost double as streets in some cases, and so we're coming up on Chicago Avenue now, and if you look to the east, you can see what kind of skyline views are available to residents over here. You can get some really nice views of the downtown Loop skyline from over here. Part of that's got to be because you're next to the Kennedy. There's obviously going to be clear sight lines there. So now we're passing Eckhart Park from the south. We're headed west on Chicago Avenue now. There's a large playground there. And here's the field house that I mentioned before. And another prominent feature of Eckhart Park is the Ida Crown Natatorium, of course. Popular public swimming pool. Now here's a development we've focused on quite a bit on Yo Chicago, and look at that. We've been calling it, and they've been calling it, Chicago View 2 for as long as I can remember. But now I'm noticing that the sign has changed. Now it says 1400 to 1418 Chicago, and it looks like the marketing team has changed as well. So I guess that gives you an idea of what's been going on there. There's construction seems to be ongoing. There's a number of guys out, but marketing team seems to have changed. Okay, we're headed north on Noble now. Obviously, the street after which this neighborhood is named, and this is, I think, the tallest high-rise in the neighborhood. This is the Noble Apartments, it's called, to the west. All right, and here on the corner of Noble and Chestnut is the St. Boniface Church. Read an article in Cranes earlier this week that said the Archdiocese of Chicago is putting that up for auction. It's a very large old church, and I believe it's been boarded up since 1989, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. All right, now we're approaching Noble and Augusta. This is on the corner here, a condo development that I had been keeping an eye on for a while to see when it was going to start delivering, and when the market started to go south earlier this year, I believe it was converted to apartments, which is not uncommon these days. So just directly ahead you see Noble empties out into Milwaukee Avenue, which is another one of the main thoroughfares here. I think we're gonna continue on and see what's going on up on Milwaukee. Now I was all right. Actually, here's we're coming up on the it's called the Noble Co-op, which is another one of the more prominent buildings in the neighborhood. It's this large high-rise at the corner of Noble, Division, and Milwaukee Avenues. Or actually, not Noble. Excuse me. It's just Division and Milwaukee up there. So I pulled out some census data before jumping in the car this morning, and it looks like we got a fairly diverse population here in Noble Square. About 46% of the population is white. About a quarter of the population is African American, and another 20% or so has been listed as other. In the particular census data that I brought up, Hispanic or Latino was not an option, so I'm going to assume that a large chunk of that 20% or so is Hispanic or Latino, just because Hispanics, particularly Mexicans, have a very visible presence in the neighborhood, in the restaurants and other storefronts. That's an idea of the demographic breakdown. In terms of housing, I think there are quite a few. There's 80% of the housing here is actually rental. So I guess that, I'm not sure how that stacks up to other North Side neighborhoods, but that gives you a sense that you have a fairly transient population here. 20% condos. There's been quite a bit of new construction in the neighborhood recently. All right, now we're heading west again on Chestnut, just passing the Eckhart Park apartments, and yeah, this is actually a street that I've never been down before. Fairly quiet on a Friday afternoon. Not too much activity around here. Although, to be honest, I've been surprised how many people you see out in Noble Square at 11 a.m. on a Friday. So we're gonna end up here on Ashland again, and I'm gonna head south again, and we're gonna try and get in and have a look at a few more of these smaller residential streets. Again, you're seeing a number of pretty modern looking condo buildings that are either under construction or have been completed within the past, let's say, year and a half. Not much longer than that. Okay, now we're heading down Fry Street right now, which is one of the more narrow streets in the neighborhood. It's pretty small by Chicago standards, and it seems like a pretty quiet street. One of the draws down here on Fry, or one of the reasons that people not from Noble Square would even know of this street is because it is home to one of the more popular neighborhood taverns in the Chip Inn, which I would say has a pretty popular cult following. Okay, so we're here on the backside now of the Eckhart Park apartments, I believe. Says they're leasing. And again, here's another very narrow street. These are almost just glorified alleys in a way. You don't see many streets like this. I was looking at Google Maps earlier this morning just to get an idea of what I was going to be encountering out here in Noble Square, and a lot of these little streets weren't even listed on Google Maps. Which, yeah, if you wanna remain anonymous, I guess it's a good place to come. Okay, so we're out here on Ashland again.